Is this the year the Blue Jackets finally win a Stanley Cup, or will they be scraping the bottom of the league again? It's their season preview today on Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Hayden Houshorn. With me is my co-host, Jay Foster. We're here to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of your favorite team and ours, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before you go, and we want to thank you for making this your first listen every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. YouTube, if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Getting so close to 500 followers there. And we're also available on the Sirius XM app. So season number 23 in Blue Jackets franchise history is coming up in just 37 days, Jay, till that opening night against the Flyers. That game will obviously have a lot of energy to it. And then we even got some preseason games coming up in the next couple of weeks. I know I got my tickets set for the one against the Sabres, so I'll be in the building for that one. So it's just exciting time. But let's talk about it, Jay. The Jackets, they haven't been to the Stanley Cup playoffs in 2 seasons now. Jackets fans are a little bit eager for them to get back, and so am I, because we waited a couple decades for them to finally be a consistent playoff team. They did become a consistent playoff team just for a short 4-year stint, fell off. Can Mike Babcock bring them back in his first year in Columbus, Jay? What do you say?
First off, I think it's been 3 years since they've made the playoffs.
That's fair.
I'm sure it's been longer.
Now it is, yes.
It's either that or the last 2 years have felt like a million years. But like you said, it's been a while since they've been in the playoffs. This is going to be a team that is much better than last season. You know, we've been saying that all off season. They're hopefully, knock on wood, going to be healthy. They're going to get better goaltending. They've shored up the defense. Adam Fantilli is going to be in town. So they have an actual legitimate top 6 center for the first time in a while, let's say. Are they Stanley Cup contenders yet? I'm not sure. But I think that this very possibly could be a playoff team. I talked about this a little bit on when we did our Metro matchups. I talked to Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders, and me and him were both of the opinion that we wouldn't be surprised to see those two teams battling it out for that final playoff spot, right down to like the last week of the regular season.
Yeah, I like that. And you were absolutely right. It has been 3 years, 3 straight seasons the Blue Jackets have gone without making the playoffs. I forget
they made the playoffs for 4 straight years, and then it all went downhill from there. So hopefully we can start a new streak this year.
Yeah, because that last season of Torts was right after COVID. Mm-hmm. And Pierre-Luc Dubois, that was that whole falling out, and it was just a miserable year. So, yeah, thank you for reminding. It's been 3 years since the Blue Jackets have made the playoffs, which – you know, for some teams, there's probably some Canadian teams out there, maybe like the Senators, maybe their drought's a little bit longer, but maybe there's some teams out there that are like, wow, these fans are complaining about 3 years without making the playoffs. Hey, listen, that feels like a long time because it took us forever to just make the playoffs. But you're right, Jay, a lot of new additions this year on the team. So instantly the Blue Jackets become a team talked about in, okay, can this team make the playoffs this year? Because they got a lot better.
Yeah, I just looked it up. There are 5 teams that have a longer playoff season drought than us. The San Jose Sharks have gone 4 years. The Anaheim Ducks have gone 5. The Ottawa Senators have gone 6. The Detroit Red Wings have gone 7 seasons. They haven't made the playoffs since 2016. The Buffalo Sabres haven't made the playoffs since 2011.
Yeah, I knew
12 years in Buffalo Sabres. So I know it feels like it's been tough as a Blue Jackets fan for like the past 3 years, but like it could be worse.
It could be worse.
The Sabres, you know, there's a bunch of other teams that like have this same like the 3 season drought: Arizona, Chicago, Philadelphia, Vancouver. But yeah, it could be so much worse than 3 seasons, guys. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah, it could be a lot. It could be a lot worse than 3 seasons. And I think those teams a couple of those teams are going to be a lot better, especially the Senators and the Sabres. The Sabres were close last
I
year.
would be surprised to see both of those teams make the playoffs this season.
Yeah, I feel like both those teams, so those fan bases can relax a little bit because their teams are going to be better. And that's going to cause issues for the Blue Jackets, right? Because if the Blue Jackets are going to be competing for a wild card spot, then you got to think about those teams like the Sabres and the Senators, teams that got better in the other division, not just in the Metropolitan Division. Jay, when you look at the Metropolitan Division, do you think the Jackets can actually stay competitive, as we've talked about in the different division matchups that we've had, the different division crossover episodes? Do you feel like the Jackets are better than a lot of these teams, or do you feel like the Blue Jackets still have a long road to go? I feel like them getting players in was a huge step, but obviously we got to see the work put out on the ice.
Yeah, and like it's difficult to say before the season starts because obviously, we've done this before where they've had really good off seasons and then they start and the wheels just fall off immediately. So it's tough for me to sit here and be like, this team is better than 6 other Metro teams, which I don't believe. I don't know. I don't even think it's like I'm kind of looking at it as right. There's the top 2 in the Metro. Obviously, there's Carolina and New Jersey, unless one of them falls off a cliff, which again, people get injured, players go on cold streaks. I don't think it'll happen with either of these 2 teams, but it's possible. And then after that, probably the Rangers, but then there's like that 4 to 6 spot where it could be any combination of Columbus, Pittsburgh, Washington, and the Islanders. And I know that I've said 4 teams for 3 spots there, but I wouldn't be surprised to see any of those guys there. That's kind of where I'm expecting the Blue Jackets to fall, is that kind of 4 to 6 spot. Maybe they'll make that. And again, like you said, comes down to what's the other division doing. The Metro, I think, is a stronger division than the Atlantic. So as long as the Blue Jackets can kind of keep ahead of teams like the Sabres, teams like the Senators, maybe even teams like the Red Wings, who I don't expect to make the playoffs this season, it will probably be better than they were last season. All they have to do is stay ahead of those guys. And I think if they can keep pace with the rest of the division, because I think for the Metro, it's not necessarily, are we better than a lot of the Metro teams? It's can we kind of keep pace with them?
Yeah, but eventually somebody has to fall to the bottom, and I just don't know. I feel like on paper, the Blue Jackets roster is very good. I just feel like the Blue Jackets get into that part of the year and their depth starts to show a little bit. And I think
it's a very young team as well.
I think the third, fourth lines are a little weak, especially at the forward position. I mean, as deep as we've said that they are, prospect-wise, they are deep, but again, relying on prospects can only get you so far. I feel like there's other teams that just are stacked with kind of more seasoned NHL guys. But we'll see how that plays out. That definitely can change. It's not bad being a young team. That means you got a lot of energy at least. Can you take the hits in the NHL? That's kind of the question. Can you take the brutality of January and February hockey, like on the West Coast trips,
I guess it kind of comes down to, would you rather have a team that's got more 20-year-olds on it, or would you rather have a team that's got more 35-year-olds on it? Because experience, like you say, youth can only get you so far, but I feel like experience can also only get you so far. I think it's going to be really interesting seeing how Pittsburgh does this season. Obviously, they've got kind of that 4-headed monster now with Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and Erik Karlsson. All of those players are 33 or older, I believe. I believe Erik Karlsson is the youngest of those 4 players at 33. The oldest Blue Jacket is currently Erik Gudbranson at 31 years old. So,
wow. I mean, that feels good. That hearing you say those words about the ages feels really good. The names don't really get me that excited because, that is still a very much.
And I'm still expecting those guys to be very, very good this season. This is not me saying that Sidney Crosby is old and washed and is no longer going to be good. He had 90 points last season. He's obviously still got it, but for how much longer? You know, and it feels very much like the Blue Jackets and the Penguins specifically are going to kind of be 2 ships passing in the night, I think. As the Blue Jackets go up and get better, I think the Penguins are going to start to slide a little bit. Does that happen this season? I'm not sure, but that's what I can see happening over the next kind of 2 to 4 seasons, let's say.
Yeah. It's not the 2016, 2017, Malkin, Crosby, and Carlson. It's not that. Yeah, and they also still got Chris Letang, who's dangerous. But again, all getting older. So yes, 2 ships passing the night. I really like that. We are going to pass on to our next segment here, talking about some more predictions on what's going to happen this year for the Blue Jackets in their season preview. Some new faces, who's going to be the leader in certain categories. That's all coming up next on Locked On Blue Jackets. Next thing I got to talk to you guys about is our partner over at AG1. AG1 is the daily foundational nutritional supplement that supports a whole body health. I drink it literally every day. I gave AG1 a try because I was tired of taking so many supplements, and I wanted a single solution that supports my entire body and covers all the nutritional bases I need every single day. I wanted better gut health. I wanted a boost in energy. I was so just tired all the time. My wife was always pointing out, "You look so exhausted." And it was like, because you were watching hockey last night? No, because I'm just an unhealthy person. But AG1 helps my immune system support. I hated taking those pills and vitamins and want a supplement that actually tastes really great. So I drink AG1 in the morning, in the afternoon, before working out, before I even have my coffee. And it makes me feel unstoppable, ready to take on my day, ready to go like I'm doing something good for my body. It gives me the nutrition it craves, and it helps me cover all my nutritional bases. So if a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/NHL network. That's drinkag1.com/NHL network. Check it out. Season preview for this upcoming Blue Jackets season. Haven't been in the playoffs in the last 3 years. Jay and I both think it's going to be a tough road ahead, but it's still going to, we're still going to enjoy the vibes. I think either way, playoffs or not, Jay, we feel like we were both optimistic that this season is going to feel more exciting than last year's was. I mean, there's nothing fun about trying to be at the top of the lottery, and that's what the goal was for a huge chunk of last year. So just something a little bit more competitive, I think you and I will both take. Right. Who are the new faces, Jay, that help get the Blue Jackets from bottom of the NHL to competitive?
Yeah, well, first up, I want to say that I think there's this weird thing in hockey that I'm guilty of it as well, of you are either at the bottom of the barrel or you are in the playoffs, but there's 16 teams that don't make the playoffs. Sometimes there's good teams that don't make the playoffs. The Penguins missed the playoffs by a point. The Calgary Flames missed the playoffs by a couple of points. The Calgary Flames had more points this season than the Florida Panthers, and still missed the playoffs. So it's. I'm not looking at this as if the Blue Jackets don't make the playoffs this season, it's a failure and everyone should be fired and traded, and we break it down and start again. What I'm looking for this season is progress. I'm looking for steps forward from our young guys, from our new core guys. I'm looking for competitiveness. That's what I want from this team this season. I think more than anything is I want competitiveness. Would I like good, fun hockey as well? Yeah, definitely. But to me, I want them to be in close games. I want them to be losing games 3-2 instead of 7-1. I want exciting moments. I want Kent Johnson to score as many Michigan goals as he possibly can. If the Blue Jackets don't make the playoffs this season, I'm gonna be sad. Yeah, I'm gonna be disappointed, but it's not the end of the world. Because for me, what I want to see this season is I want to see them take a step forward. If they step all the way into the playoffs, great. But if they finish 6th in the division and a couple of points out of the playoffs, I'm fine with that. As long as they keep taking those steps forward, In terms of new faces, the ones that keep getting trotted out are obviously our new second pairing defenseman, Proverson, Ivan Provorov, Damon Severson. But you've got to remember Zach Werenski coming back, Jake Bean coming back up injury. The Blue Jackets have added Adam Fantilli up front. Mike Babcock is a new face. There's a lot of moving parts. And I'm going to be really interested to see what the opening night roster looks like this year to what Game 82 of last season looked like for the Blue Jackets, which I'm actually going to go and look up now.
Yeah, the Blue Jackets are that team. They are that franchise that is kind of posted up on a block that's like, oh, there's a lot of traffic on that block. So, it should be a really good spot to eat. But the roads just getting there, the parking lot is just tough to navigate. And every other year, it's a brand new restaurant. That's what the Jackets feel like. It feels like, yeah, it's a completely new set of faces than it was the last time the Blue Jackets made the playoffs. So that's a good thing, though, because that means that they didn't make the playoffs, and a lot has changed since then to make them a playoff team. A lot of new faces have came in that have tons of NHL experience. As you mentioned, the lines, the Provorov and Severson, huge help on the defense. Fantilli is going to be huge help up the middle. And the coaches, yeah, I have the coaches circled as these guys are going to get this team in the right direction. I think the Blue Jackets had a lot of talent last year. I think in a series against the Ducks and the Blackhawks, the Blue Jackets beat the Ducks in 5 games. They beat the Blackhawks maybe in 4 games. That's how much better I think the Blue Jackets were than those two teams last year. I think that they just had a young coach. They were victim to having a first-time NHL coach that maybe just wasn't as comfortable coaching in the NHL as he thought he was going to be. Still could have a great career, and I hope he does. But Mike Babcock is going to get this team playing the right way. I was just watching some highlights from that 2017 playoff series, I believe, against the Capitals, and then the series right after that when the Blue Jackets played the Bruins in round 2. I watched both games from both of those series recently, and I just noticed, Jay, how much how the Blue Jackets lacked so much talent kind of on those teams, like so much really explosive talent, but still got so much done. And it was all thanks to Torts. Like the amount of times you would see a Blue Jackets player lose possession of the puck and then immediately hop back on defense. Like I was like, I haven't seen a Blue Jackets player do that in 3 years. Like we may not notice the big changes as fans sometimes, but when you compare side by side to what the Blue Jackets looked like 3 years ago, they are missing that defensive structure. So I'm hoping that Babcock can come in and at least provide that a little bit. So that is definitely, in my opinion, the biggest new face coming in. But if we talk about the players a little bit, let's keep adding on to our next. I
just want to point out that I looked up the game sheet for Game 82 last season. The Blue Jackets lost 5-2 to the Sabres. My guess is, of this list of 20 players that dressed for that game, 6 of them will be in the opening night roster.
Who would that be? Let me guess.
So that would be Adam Boquist, who I think is a maybe, Johnny Gaudreau, Kent Johnson, Sean Corrali, Kirill Marchenko, Jack Roslovic. Maybe Andrew Peak, so I guess that's 7.
Yeah, so that team.
There's a couple of other options there, like Liam Foodie might make the team. I mean, Will Benstrom might make the team, but I'm not counting on either of those guys, So it's going to be a very, very, very different team, even from last year, not even because of the new faces, but just because we'll have guys back and guys will be healthy. And, then you add in the new guys, you add in a new coach, you add in higher expectations, I think. And it should make for a fun combination.
It should make for a really fun combination. You just said a name there, Liam Foodie. And I'm like, I've been waiting for this guy to become the NHL center that I think he can be, because that first series that he played in, which was a playoff series in the COVID bubble, I believe, against the Maple Leafs and then the Lightning, he was so fast in that series. Like, he played so loose. I want to see that, Liam Foodie. But holy crap, that roster that you just read of we only had 6 guys on that team, and we're gonna have a whole just the Blue Jackets fans just need to get the most recent version of Blue Jackets hockey out of their heads, right? Which was just
it was most of an AHL team by the end.
Mostly
of the
an AHL team.
It was Johnny Gaudreau and a bunch of children.
All right, we got to keep going here. Let's keep doing our predictions here. And let me just ask you, who do you think the points leader is going to be? I mean, a lot of guys, there's a favorite, I think, but there's also a couple guys that could sneak in and take that title. So
Yeah,
who
I
do you
mean, like
got?
Johnny Gaudreau is the obvious choice,
Mhm.
isn't he? He had, I want to say, 72 points
Yeah, he was
this
just
year.
under point a game. Yep.
Yeah, 70, 72, 74 points, something like that. I would expect him to be better than that. I'm looking for at least a point per game out of Johnny Gaudreau. I think Line could surprise people, but those are my guesses. I think, who else is there? Yeah, I think those are the two guys to go for. Like, there's some dark horses, Kent Johnson, Adam Fantilli, people like that. But I'm expecting Johnny Gaudreau to break the single season points record for the Blue Jackets, which I believe is currently sitting at 85 or 86 with Artemi Panarin.
Okay, I like that. I think I agree. Johnny Gaudreau is the best at passing, and he's the best at scoring on the team. He might not be the best at scoring. I might give that to Patrick Laine, but I don't know. I don't know. He's the best at both, and the puck is always on his stick, so he's always going to be part of the scoring. That's a given. He's so fast out there, Jay. There's so many of these, in the season reviews where I was watching a game clip from just because I was trying to watch somebody else, and I just saw Johnny Gaudreau just flying out there. I'm like, he's so small. He has to make people so mad on the ice because,
It's
like,
because he's got no resistance. He's so
none.
skinny. He just goes
Yes.
straight through the air.
Yeah. So that's it. That's awesome. I think I also got him as my points leader. I think second is going to be Patrick Laine. Wild take there. I think a guy that could finish in the top 3 in points. Like, this is his ceiling, but Boone Jenner, man, I love this. I think this guy could have a point a game season in the NHL this year. With all the talent that is just around him, he keeps getting better himself. This might be rushing my bold take, but I don't think it's that bold. I think Boone Jenner can finish in the top 3 in points. All right, and then we were gonna do one more here for this segment. We were gonna talk about who gets traded. Is there anybody that you see getting traded? A lot of times it's those same suspects from the year before that were talked about the deadline that maybe just transitions over. So guys like Boquist, Bean, Andrew Peak. Do you have it being a forward? Who do you have getting moved this year, Jay?
Yeah, those guys, Boquist, Bean, Peak, I think are the key ones there. The other option is Morgan, one of our wonderful everydays, is going to get real mad. Jack Roslovic, I think, is an option. Just because I think he's kind of been skipped over by a lot of players in terms of the depth chart. He's not a top 6 center, and he shouldn't be getting played as one. His contract is pretty movable. He's my kind of pick for a mid-season trade, or possibly even a trade before the season even starts. But a lot of this also, I think, is based on if the Blue Jackets are going to be buyers or sellers at the deadline. I don't think they're going to be buyers. Even if they make it into the playoffs, I don't think they're going to trade picks and prospects to get free agent rentals. But we'll see how it goes. They could be sellers if they're, out of the playoff spot, but the Florida Panthers didn't do anything at the trade deadline last season, and then they made the Stanley Cup final, So it's we'll see. Maybe they'll start the season with the exact same team maybe they'll finish the season with the exact same team that they started with.
Yeah, the player that I have potentially getting moved is a guy that I'm really excited about coming back, but I just wonder if a trade might be the best thing that could possibly happen to a guy like Alexander Texier, because I just feel like he's so young, though. That's the thing. I don't want to trade him, but maybe that makes him really tradable. I don't know what his situation was back with his family and why he felt the need to go home. I hope that whatever did happen with that resolved itself in the best way that it could. I'm happy he's coming back to Columbus, but I could also see a situation where he comes back to Columbus after a year of not being here, not knowing anybody, having a coaching staff that has somewhat changed, and just feeling like he just needs a change in scenery. maybe that could be good for him. I think it would be good for him, actually. As much as I selfishly want to keep him around, I think the Blue Jackets actually could get some good value for a guy like Alexander Texier. And with also how many wingers the Blue Jackets have in the prospect pool, I think it's okay to let him go and not think too much about it. But that's just one guy that I have. I didn't want to pick any of those defensemen that we've talked about the whole way through. All right. We're going to finish up this season preview with some bold predictions. I will sometimes say some crazy things. Jay will sometimes say some crazy things. Will that be next? We'll see. Coming up here on Locked On Blue Jackets. All right, it's bold predictions time. And I don't know which way you want to go with this, Jay. I have one that's like kind of bold, but not really crazy. Do you have, what's the temperature on yours?
I think mine's probably medium hot. It's
Okay.
like you can touch. I think you can touch it with your bare hands, but not for very long. Like when your latte is just a little bit too hot and you need one of those cardboard sleeves. I think that's how hot my take is.
Okay. All right. Why don't we let you go then? Why don't we let you go first then? Yeah.
I think Adam Fantilli is going to score 30 goals and add 30 assists this season.
Okay, so 60-point season at least
60-point
coming
season
for this
from
guy.
Adam Fantilli.
Wow, that is bold. That is bold.
I will say that Matthew Beniers won the Calder last season with, I believe, 26 goals scored. So.
Wow. Okay, so you have him doing more than Matty Beniers. I have him doing
better than Matty Beniers, which I think is why it's a hot take.
It is. I was going to do something about Adam Fantilli, and I was also going to do something about Adam Fantilli having a really good season. But since you did that, I'm going to do something else about another one.
Matty Beniers had 57 points last season to win the Calder.
Okay, so you feel. So
I'm saying that I think he's going to do better than Matty Beniers, but I still think it's going to be a tight Calder race. You've got Logan Cooley coming in. You've got Connor Bedard there. I think David Jiricek is going to give Calder voters a run for their money. But yeah, that's my prediction is 60 points from Adam Fantilli in his rookie season, which would beat the rookie record for the Blue Jackets, I believe, by 12 points.
Okay. I would be ecstatic about that, as would anybody listening to the show. Yeah, that would be freaking awesome. I mean, my bold take was going to be, I think Adam Fantilli is going to win the Calder. But since you pretty much covered that, I think if he has a 60-point season, he'll definitely be in the mix and should probably be given it. It'll depend on how some of the other guys in his draft class do, including Connor Bedard, because, I mean, if he has a 70-point season and Fantilli has a 60-point season, it's probably going to go to Connor Bedard. But, yeah, I'm going to say David Jiricek wins the Calder this year. So that take could be steam. It's probably pretty steaming.
That's probably a little hotter than my take, I think.
It's definitely a little hotter. I think he could win it. I mean, the problem is the Blue Jackets just they're not going to get a lot of attention. They don't usually get a lot of attention in terms of like these kinds of votes. But I think he's a really good player. I think the Blue Jackets are going to lean on him a lot this year. I think he's going to get a lot of power play time. I think as long as he does everything that he's been doing in Cleveland and in with Czechia, then he should be really, really good. So okay. I it's not really fair because I saw how hot your take was, and I was like, I'll turn it up a little bit. But we both predicted Calder winners. Is there anything else that you want to predict that you can think of off the top of your head, just for funsies? I mean,
I'm just gonna look at the roster again. Let's see, but I think that's my hottest take. I guess like the Blue Jackets making the playoffs might be a hot take based on what a lot of people who are not Blue Jackets fans are saying. But
yeah, that is a hot take.
Oh, here's another potential hot take. Kirill Marchenko could lead the team in goals.
I like that. He
could score more goals than Patrick Laine if he does what he did last season. He's definitely up there.
Yeah. How about this one? Elvis gets traded. What if that happened? What if he came out, played decent this year, showed old Elvis? Tarasov also plays good. Jet Greaves has a really good season with Cleveland. Maybe Aaron Dell's even on the team. Who knows? And all of a sudden, Elvis gets all this interest. I think in this situation, though, the Blue Jackets have to be bad to trade Elvis. I think if they get a good Elvis, then they're going to want to keep him because they've been waiting forever to have a good Elvis. But the second that the Blue Jackets team is bad and he starts playing well, then he could get moved just as the same way Korpisalo did, is the way I see it. I don't think his contract's great for movement. Don't get me wrong, but we know how much people will sell out for goalies at the end of the year. That's kind of all I have. We have a couple more episodes to get some bold takes out there. Obviously, this was our season preview, but we got a couple other season preview-ish type of episodes coming down the way, including tomorrow's, which should be a ton of fun, talking about all the reasons why the Blue Jackets can make the playoffs. So I think there's a roadmap to making the playoffs. Jay and I kind of laid it out there in the first segment, but we will go into more in depth on that tomorrow, and then maybe even follow it up with some more upcoming talk on the season. I think we still have a couple more things we need to do on last year, right? We have like one or two things we may need to clean up, so we're not totally out of the water.
Yeah, we got to do a little bit of a wrap-up episode, I think, but for the most part, it's going to be looking forward to the new season, which is exciting.
Yes. And that's all we have for you today. Again, tomorrow we're talking about all the ways the Blue Jackets can make the playoffs. So make sure you tune into that one. Thank you for making this your first listen every day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms, right here on YouTube. If you like what you saw, hit subscribe. You can also find us on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at HaydenH971. You can find Jay on Twitter at _JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show on Twitter at LO_Blue Jackets. You can also email us directly any content you may want to see, any little tips that you get. Or maybe like you hear a big trade is coming down the way and you're like, man, I need to get this out there. Email us. We'll get your hot takes out there. We'll blame you if it's wrong, of course. But lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com is the spot for that. Thank you once again for listening. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.